Today, we're going to be talking about parasitic relationships, about how the narcissist is draining you of your resources. And anybody who survived one of these relationships, I'm sure, can all too relate to what you've gone through, the experiences that you've had when you were in the midst of that relationship, the degree that you felt like you were being depleted, not only of your time, money, resources, energy, maybe even your very sense of self, but also you saw your health decline, maybe your relationship with other people were being depleted, or you're being insulated from other relationships. Maybe you felt like your options for work were being limited, that you saw that you were essentially being restricted, and that everything that made you you and made your life feel valuable and important and worth something, you felt was stymied or restricted or costing you something. I want to talk about what areas of toxic relationships, how they impact us, what areas get affected. I also want to talk about the hidden costs of narcissistic abuse, a hidden cost of being in relationships with people who are toxic or predatory or exploitative. And so I want to break this really down into not only the obvious ones, but also in the not so obvious ones, the more that it tend to be more subtle, more hidden costs of impacts, such as, did you realize that even your sense of self and your identity is being impacted, and your creativity? So I want to talk about all these variety of areas that get impacted, as well as early signs that you're being damaged. And then finally, I want to talk about what's its impact on, how to protect yourself so that you can minimize these impacts. What kind of steps should you be taking to reduce the damage that's happening to your sense of self, to your very identity, to your financial resources, to all your assets, everything that has to do with you. Excuse me. So the big obvious areas that we often recognize because we sense what's happening when we're in these toxic relationships is that we know that it's costing us at a relationship level. Sorry, I've been trying to get over a cold and it's really hanging around me. You may feel like your freedoms have been impacted, like maybe your choices, maybe even the amount of control you have over your day, over your meals. Sorry, it's getting really noisy here. I apologize for that. Over the weekend I have an asthma attack, which is the first time I've had one in maybe, I don't know, 9 years or something, a really long time. So I've been just something really hanging over that's bothering me. So I'm trying to get over that. So I apologize. But yeah, you may have felt like your very financial well-being, maybe your work choices are being impacted, that you can't work the days that you want or the hours that you want, that suddenly, and you know what? Usually this first shows up in a subtle way, like, do you have to be gone this weekend? I was really hoping to see you and we haven't spent much time with you. Or, I know that this is really important to you, but it's starting to have a negative cost on me. And have you noticed that maybe my acting out behavior has gotten worse? Maybe you should kind of reconsider the cost that it's having on the relationship. Maybe this work relationship or maybe this friendship of yours is more detrimental to us than you think that it is. I know that's how it happened to me. At first that things were being proposed to somehow keep us safer, to keep the relationship more on even keel or so negative, not so negative, but it ended up, what it did was it isolated me, that I stopped being able to have the relationships that I wanted to have, that maybe I needed to have in order for me to be safe. Because this person was suggesting that these other relationships or other people in my life or the work that I did, he didn't attack me for the work. He just made it really hard to work. But I know that there are people, I actually heard of there was a woman who was a nurse who said that her ex would show up at the hospital and then make this big to-do, this big, huge, crisis, this huge scene, and end up getting her fired from her job so that she wasn't able to hold down the position that she needed to have the income. So they find these really sophisticated ways to sabotage you. It might be you don't have access to the car, or they promise you have access to the car, only when it comes to your appointment or the time you have to show up to work, suddenly you don't have access to the car. Or maybe they promise that they're going to help with childcare, only when it comes to the moment in which you need them in the house in order to take care of the kids, they don't show up, or they're inebriated, or there's some other thing that you end up thinking, I can't walk out like this. This is a situation that's a disaster. My priorities here is the safety of my kids. But you end up finding that they're very good at sabotaging you having your best life, you leading a life that's really good for you and your family, and even ultimately for the benefit of this relationship, because they need to be in control. And I think I had a really hard time seeing that this was really about control. It wasn't about what was good for us. Certainly wasn't good about what was good for me, that it was really about what was good for this individual, and that he was willing to have it cost all of these problems in order for him to have his way. And here's the other thing I think a lot of us get really confused about. Most of us believe that relationships really should be about a win-win situation, that you're better for being in the relationship and they're better for being in the relationship, and that because we're mutually like serving each other, then we come out ahead. Toxic people don't see you coming out ahead as a benefit to them. And I know that's so bizarre. It is something that really was very hard for me to get my mind wrapped around. I kept thinking, why would it not be a win if we're winning because I'm winning? That just seems to make logical sense, that 2 plus 2 equals 4. We're coming out ahead because I'm coming out ahead. That means you're coming out ahead. But that's not how they see the world. They see the world in a very competitive, very jealous mindset. And because it's literally that person against the world, then they perceive every way in which you come out ahead as if they're losing. That somehow it's as if it's almost as if there's like limited amount of admiration and benefits and supply and resources and good things for everybody. And so that when you take from the pile, they see it as that you've depleted the pile so that there's less for them to take from the pile. And it doesn't matter. You'd think, well, but they love me. Why would they then see that as a loss to them? Because I'm part of them, right? We're a we. Shouldn't they see the we part of us as benefiting both of us? No, they don't see it that way. They have this competitive, kind of combative, antagonistic, predatory, parasitic mindset. So when they see you take from that perceived pile, they see that as a loss, a direct loss to them, that you're now diminishing their access to whatever goodies that they perceive that there is out there. So then they get very competitive, and they start to sabotage and exploit and manipulate and deceive in order to reduce your access, so that they then come out ahead, because only they should get to take from this perceived resource pile, not you. So you having a better job, or even a good job, or being financially independent, you having your autonomy, you being able to be an individual in that relationship, all of these things are seen as assets, and they don't really want you. They don't, it's not they don't really, they don't want you having access to those things. That was what very much confused me in the middle of that relationship. I just couldn't fathom how somebody could not see that because I was coming out ahead, we both came out ahead. In fact, I know my ex used to brag about whatever gains I made. Little did I know that those gains for me were rapidly diminishing, because I was no longer able to do those things. Like, I stopped writing. I was writing a lot before I met him. I stopped writing when I got into that relationship, because it became all about the management of the relationship. So there wasn't a whole much space for me to be creative. So I want to really understand this mindset, because that's what makes more sense when you start to look at the depletion of your assets, depletion of your sense of self, is that you being healthy, you glowing up, you having connections, you going out to eat with friends, you having a good job, you even having a decent car. I think of this, one of these, remember that Ring camera deal where somebody posted where the wife of this wealthy person had to ask permission to use a car? And my first thought was, why do they not both have access to the car? This is not somebody who is very well off. Most American families have 2 cars. We need 2 cars because we have to drive everywhere. Why is this individual in this luxury house only having 1 vehicle where his wife has to ask him? Well, see, it's all about the control and the management. It isn't about your success. It's about them capitalizing on yourself and on your resources, and their intention is to drain you, because in their minds, and this is another really bizarre thing that doesn't make sense to me, but they see you as coming out ahead as somehow is an insult to them. It's like it's an injury to them. You being successful and leading with whatever way that you do, they sort of see that as a takeaway. Like you, like again, like you're depleting from the pile of resources. Like even you, having the insight that you do, they want you to be lesser than, smaller than, just quieter, because all of that, and it really doesn't matter by gender. I know that a lot of us like to say this is what happens to women. It actually happens to both men and women in these relationships, that you have to diminish yourself, that they're actually depleting you of everything that is about you in order for them to have the best advantage. It's almost like if you imagine you're trying to get over a wall of something that's, an obstacle, and your partner agrees to sort of stoop or offer their hands to help lift you up. They're willing to like smash you into the ground in order to get the leg up over the wall. And by the way, they're not going to be leaning their hand down to grab you to help you back over. Once they're on the other side, they're gone. It's sort of like wave goodbye, because they're out of there. They're gone. So let me talk about the main areas of impact that we obviously see that happens when we get into a toxic relationship. And for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Dr. Kerry McAvoy. I'm a psychologist with over 20 years of counseling practice. These days, I primarily promote content and education, as well as group coaching support and retreat support for abuse survivors. And if you're in one of these categories and you're looking for more help, you're really feeling isolated, maybe you would just like to know that you're not alone, consider joining one of my groups. I've got groups that at a community chat level, as well as weekly lives. I also have groups that have focuses like Healing Strong if you're trying to recover from a relationship. There's also a new group that's launching this January called Trauma Bond Recovery Group Coaching with Lisa Sunny. So if you feel like you can't break that attachment with somebody, please check that out, as well as there's also retreats. We have 3 spots left for Rising Strong in Riviera Maya, Mexico. Amazing, like luxurious level hacienda on the ocean front with a pool, butler level service. It's going to be incredible breakout workout group sessions, as well as workshops. Your excursions are included. The only thing you pay for is getting yourself to Mexico, and then the cost of from the airport to the hotel. Everything else from the minute you arrive, it's all covered. Drinks, meals, group work, excursions, right on the ocean. And we're taking a couple excursions. We're going to go shopping to Playa del Carmen, as well as we're going to check out this really incredible feature in the Mexico area that's really like kind of exciting to see. So if you're thinking about, I really like to be around other women and heal, and I'd like to know that I'm not alone, and I want to, get to meet Kerry and Lisa and Ro, please check out wellnessrecoveryretreats.com. In fact, I posted a video over on TikTok this week. And I also think I posted it on Facebook. So if you're curious to learning more about this, please check out those resources so you can see what it's like and what it would be like for you to come and manage. Okay, so here is the major areas that get impacted when we get into these toxic relationships. First, your mental health. Because of the trauma bomb, you're being actually pulled into a cult of 2. If you don't recognize what a cult is and want to learn a whole lot about it, I want to highly recommend 2 things. It's the same person. It's Daniela Massanek Young, she's known as on TikTok, I think she's also on YouTube too, is the knitting cult lady. She survived the Children of God she's 3 generations of Children of God. She also was in the military, and she's been writing about cults and identification of the cults, and she has 10 criteria. And when you listen to them from a perspective of surviving narcissistic abuse, I'll tell you, it's pretty shocking, because the things that happen to set up a cult is what happens in these relationships. And think about how smart people get pulled into cults. And we end up thinking like, how did that happen? Shouldn't they have known that this person was really dangerous? Well, because they offer us in the beginning what we really want. We feel like we've met our soulmate, or that we finally found our community, or that maybe there is such a thing as a utopia. And we get into these relationships thinking, wow, I'm finally going to feel seen and supported and loved and really like highlighted. And then instead you end up finding out, no, it's not that at all. This person's actually did this as a ruse. It's basically a bait and switch. And by then, you're in so deep that they really then get you, because there's all these consequences if you leave. And of course, they're pathologizing you. It's you, not them. So anyway, check it out. It's fascinating. And she has a podcast called Culting in America. In fact, I just was on it recently. They haven't posted it, but Wow, I'll tell you, it's fascinating. I've been listening to just even what a cult looks like, and think about that from the perspective of what you survived. Okay, so your mental health. Often our mental health is impacted because of the trauma bond that we're in and the way that it's diminishing our sense of self. The gaslighting is creating confusion, so we're no longer for sure what's true. And the confusion's directly impacting our cognitive functioning, so you're experiencing brain damage. Yeah, you heard me correctly. It's been proven there's actually neurological brain damages that happens when we get into these relationships. So your mental health starts to deteriorate when you get into these relationships. You're not the same person that you were when you met them. When you get out, you have been diminished. You experience a form of what's called in psychology decompensation. You're left with lingering anxieties and triggers and probably PTSD symptoms, maybe complex PTSD symptoms, but you have been affected. The second thing is your physical health. I know a lot of us don't necessarily realize that being in a state of flight or fight, although is a survival mechanism and terribly important for the body, when we're in these for long states, long periods of time, it has radical ramifications for the body, including chronic inflammation. And that has a whole host of problems depending on your vulnerability. So some of us may be more prone to having like asthma, as an autoimmune disease, all sorts of problems. I've known people who have lupus, MS, arthritis, asthma. The list just goes on of all these types of things. There is somebody that I know, in fact, two people. So I have a membership club where we meet weekly. In fact, after I get off of this call, I'm going to jump over there and spend time with them, which if you want to join, I'd love to have you be a part of it. The entry level is really easy. If you have any kind of financial necessity for help, I offer it to every person, did you hear me? Every person who asks gets financial assistance. But two members of my club, and I'm thinking like out of 40 or 50 people, two of them have had heart attacks and they're under 50. And one is a woman in her 40s, have suffered heart attacks. And can you imagine the ramifications of this? I was collapsing. I actually passed out on an airplane, and the doctor thought I'd either suffered a heart attack or had a mild stroke. Thank goodness, a thorough checkup revealed that none of that had happened, that I did not suffer a stroke or a heart attack, but I had the symptoms of it. So I was definitely on the down spiral in that relationship. April just wrote in and said she has chronic Epstein-Barr. So there's a whole host of things that can happen when we're in these toxic relationships. It also depletes your financial resources. I don't really actually know how much I lost. I have not stopped to calculate it. I have a suspicion it's north of $200,000. Somebody just recently posted that they've lost $1 million in the toxic relationship. I remember hearing somebody else who was talking about the fact that they had spent over $250,000 just in legal fees, custody fees alone. They're not even including all the things that happened in that relationship. So I know it really, really taxes us financially. And then your time and your energy. The fact, like I said, that I was not being able to invest in the normal things that I was invested in. I was really affecting the amount of relationships I could have, that I was really like limiting my relationships and not really basically seeing anybody. And it was also then affecting my social status and my career, that I basically stopped my career while I was in this, started something new, basically had to close that when I left and start all over. And I know many of you have shared with me how much it's cost you as well in your financial realm or career or work status or social status. And here's another thing about social status. I found that it was very hard for me to talk about it, that I didn't want anyone to know because I felt ashamed what was happening. How do you say to people, yeah, I have a PhD and I fell for a con. I got into a relationship with a con artist and he scammed me and it's cost me a lot of money. And I thought I was investing in our future and investing in my future. And instead I was basically filling the pocket of somebody else. It's humiliating. So even just that alone ends up like how can you talk about it? Ends up carrying so much shame. Okay, so here are the areas that get overlooked that also get impacted when we're in these relationships. Your sense of self-perception, let me say that again, your self-perception and identity. What do I mean by that? Well, you start to internalize negative beliefs about yourself. You start to see them through their eyes. They've made up some weird belief about you, like me. You're a spender, or you're an oversaver, or you're too sensitive. It's some weird thing that they have painted some picture. You have to have everything perfect, or you're just silly and clumsy about everything. But whatever it is, they've created this, they kind of almost like manufactured this sentiment about you, and then they've been feeding it to you. I remember if you've watched the podcast that just went live this week, it's called on the audio, it's called The High Cost of a Narcissistic Relationship. And then on YouTube, it's called How the Narcissist Will Destroy You or Ruin Everything in Your Life. I'm trying to remember the title. But anyway, one of the things that Lisa shared was her partner kept saying to her that she just wasn't easy to get along with. That people didn't always like her. There was always somebody that didn't like her. Painting, kind of like pinpoint, almost like, pinning this thought that she was difficult, that people weren't going to select her, that she was hard to work with, and that she just wasn't going to be popular because she's always be that person, that there's one person who can't stand her. But they have this way of just highlighting something about yourself that makes you feel super sensitive. I have always been on the large size of the continuum. So even when I was really little, and young and small, I grew up on a farm. I have big hands. My hands are man size. I have huge feet. I wear size 10. I've always been on the large size of this. And so even at my thinnest, I was still like a size 12. I'm just never tiny. I'm not one of these petite, I'm 5'7.5". I'm just not a petite woman. Never have been. In fact, you know what? I'm the smallest woman in my family. That's how big my family is. My dad was 6'1". My other sister was 5'10". My mom's 5'9". We're just tall people. So never been small. Well, he would highlight that. Here we are in Mexico, and we would walk into a shop. Now remember Mexico, okay? So the average height there, I have no idea, but I would guess, since the average height of women in the United States is roughly about 5'4", I bet you the average height of women in Mexico is somewhere between 5 foot and 5'2". So small, they're petite people. And I would walk into the store. First of all, I got a height problem going on because I'm 5'7.5". And then he would begin to say to the storekeeper, "Do you carry her size? Do you carry like extra large or extra large?" And I'm like, I can't buy clothes here. Come on. I mean, I need to go to another country where they have tall people, big people. And it would be just what he was doing, though. He was publicly calling me out, making it known to everyone in the store, as well as the shopkeeper, that I was a large woman. And, all of in the sense of to ding my personality and to hurt me, just for me to know that I wasn't all that, just to kind of keep me under his thumb, to make me feel super insecure. So they're doing something regarding that with you. Maybe it's the way that you cook, or your child caring responsibility. Maybe it's how you have a job and what you're doing at the job. Maybe it's the car you drive, or maybe it's the way you dress, but it's something that they know that you have an insecurity about. They spotted it, and they're going to make sure, first at kind of a sweet, backhanded, subtle way, but they're going to work you over so that your self-perception and your sense of self gets damaged, so that you just know, the intent is so that you know that you're not all that. That's the goal. Your creativity and your passion is struggling. They are really, because of this competitiveness, and the fact that they're exhausting, managing this relationship and managing the crisis and going from thing to thing to thing. They're just sapping you of anything that really helps you to be more creative. I'll tell you, I have never experienced a more creative, explosively, inspirational period in my life than when I've gotten out of that relationship. I have created more content, have had more ideas. I mean, goodness, I've written 3 books. So all in the last five years. And here I am in my late 50s going into my 60s, and I've been able to accomplish all these things. I mean, I have a platform now that I didn't have before. All of these things I've been able to do. Why? Because no one's depleting me. Because I have full reign over my life, and I'm not being suppressed in any way. And I bet you, if you also think about your life and think about what you're able to do, can you pick up a new hobby? Could you do something new? Or are they kind of watching over your shoulders and just really and sort of scrutinizing everything that you say and do? It's also, they're impacting your decision-making ability. They're questioning whatever you do and how you do it. So to give you some irony, one of the things my ex used to say, now mind you, I'm a super careful driver. I don't always drive within the speed limit, but I'm not massively over. I'm just one of these kind of cautious people in general. But he said, you're the kind of person that people have accidents around. It's like, where? I don't see the pileups around me, but they just have this way of making you doubt that maybe you're not making the best decisions, that maybe there's some aspect or corner of it that you're not really thinking about that starts to freeze you. I started to feel so insecure that I struggled to write emails. Now, remember, I told you I've been writing for a while before I even got into the relationship, and now I'm struggling to write an email, a simple email. I started to doubt my interactions with people, started to get insecure, started to stutter, started to struggle with mutism. You probably find that funny because here I am talking up a storm, like, you stuttered to speak? Yeah, I struggled to speak. I would have a sort of a stammer that I would sometimes struggle to find the right word. I just struggled in all sorts of ways because my decision making was being questioned, which then made me insecure about even saying what I was thinking because I didn't know how safe I would felt be able to do that. So also your physical appearance is changing. I bet he wanted to dress me. How many of you guys found your partner wanting to dress you? They started to tell you what you should and shouldn't wear. I was told I wasn't to wear animal print, that he hated them. Now come to find out, one of his former women friends used to be huge into animal print. Yeah, some of you are like, yep. Yeah, I started to be, he had an opinion. I wear wigs. He had an opinion about who could see me without a wig or who could not. He got really offended if he found out that I had a massage with somebody and I took my wig off in order to have it in the same room with them, like a friend. He sort of like, why would you do that? I can't believe you do that. But it was just strange the way he would kind of control things. One of the other things was I found he'd taken a photograph of one of his exes while she slept. And I asked him, don't ever take it of me. Don't ever take one of me sleeping. What did I find when I got out of that relationship and was able to go through his phone? Oh yeah, he took one of me sleeping. I have it. I still have it. The photo he took of me sleeping. So they'll do things like that to just really kind of affect your sense of self, your physical appearance, how you dress, how you conduct yourself. And then here's another big one. I know a lot of you tell me about this. It impacts your ability to trust. Your trust now has been destroyed, and because of that, you're struggling to connect with other people. You wonder how many other people are dangerous like this because you thought before you met him or before you met her, you'd met the safest person in the world. I bet you said that. I did. I actually have a tape of myself telling my therapist that I had never met someone safer, and yet I couldn't have met a more dangerous person than I met in that person. They seem in the beginning the complete opposite of what, like I said, it's a bait and switch. You think you're being sold the most awesome vehicle in the world, the most awesome relationship, a fairy tale relationship, and you find out it's a nightmare. Not only the worst nightmare, but you have been born like on a slave, prison island somewhere. Oh my goodness, I've never seen that before. You don't realize that you are in the worst situation that you have ever could imagine being in. So you now struggle to trust and you struggle to connect with other people. You struggle to realize who's safe. Then also your long-term life goals get changed. Okay, I know that happened for me. I now know that the future I was going to have is now changed. I don't know what my future looks like. I don't know if I'll run out of money. I don't know if I'll ever be able to officially retire because of what's happened to me financially. You may find that you feel like your future with the kids and imagining having that wedding or the first grandbaby being born in your life, or even whether or not you'll have a relationship with the kids because they're so much, negatively impacting that relationship and causing so much sabotage and damage with the mindset. So you end up wondering, will that even be possible? Could I ever do that? And on top of it, you probably, because of financial damage, wondered, could you ever make up all that's been lost? Or maybe you had a career that you really wanted, that you thought you could pursue. Maybe it was something that took a lot of education, and now you're wondering, I don't know if I have the time or the freedom or the wherewithal to be able to do it in my life anymore. So you've seen these options, these choices diminished in your life. And then finally, your sense of safety and stability have been damaged as well. You now know that the world has way too many predatory people in it, that exploitation is really possible. I just got moved into a new area and met my neighbor across the street, nice looking, younger man, I'd say he's a millennial probably. I'd say he's late 30s, early 40s. And he's single. I don't know anything about him other than what car he drives and kind of the hours he possibly keeps. And I remember thinking, I was heading out for a vacation. I thought to myself, don't tell him you're going to be gone and leaving the house for 10 days because you don't know this guy. You don't know what he's capable of and you don't know how safe he is. I wouldn't have, now, was that smart? Probably, yeah, that was smart to do. But I wouldn't have had I wouldn't have thought that before. That's a new thought that I've never had before that I had to think through. And I feel that way for anybody that I meet. It isn't just because he was a man. I now no longer trust anyone because I don't know who's predatory and who's not predatory. So someone's asking right now, how do you sign up for the group? So it depends on what group you're interested in. If you're interested in an ongoing subscription, it's called Toxic Free Relationship Club. It's actually a link should be in my link page. If not, look for Kerry McAvoy, PhD. If you're looking for healing after narcissistic abuse, it's called Healing Strong. And if you're looking for support to break a trauma bond, it's called Trauma Bond Recovery Group Coaching. And all those links should be listed. I don't know about the Toxic Free Relationship Coaching, if that's listed, the Toxic Free Club, but check out the web page. I know it's listed on the web page. Okay, so what's the early sign that you're being damaged by this relationship? Let's get into that. And then I want to wrap up today. And I know this is going really long, but I want to wrap up about this first steps to stopping this so that you can be able to get into the right direction. Okay, some signs that you're struggling. Are you feeling constantly anxious or restless? Do you find yourself feeling just kind of uneasy around your partner? Like hard to relax, hard to be comfortable? Do you find that you just feel edgy? Like you're always like taking this person's emotional temperature, wondering whether or not their things are good or not good. And you're basing how much you can relax based on how good or not good things feel. That's one of the early warning signs that you're in a constant state of fight or flight. Do you find that you have a lot of self-doubt and you're feeling confused? Do you find yourself not even sure what's really actually real? And if what you saw, you think you saw, are you questioning if you really saw it? You're questioning maybe if it really happened, because then they'll tell you that you didn't and that you got it wrong. I'll never forget, there was a TikTok. I don't know if it was planned or staged. It looked not staged. It looked real. This person a woman walked up to her partner and knocked on the truck door, and a woman got out. Not him, a woman got out. And she's like, who is that woman? And her partner comes around the side and says, I don't know who you're talking about. That woman literally played out like one of these, there's a like old-fashioned 1950s movie, black and white, it was the same. I'm sure you've seen it. It's like, Larry, what woman? And then by the end, she's not even for sure there was a woman ever in the bed. Well, this is the same situation. This woman is like leaving the truck and they're obviously up to something. And by the end of the TikTok video, she wasn't even for sure if she saw what she saw. He successfully played dumb all the way through it that she was questioning herself. So if you find yourself really filled with self-doubt, feeling kind of crazy, feeling like you're not for sure what's going on, feeling like you can't quite put your finger on it, but something feels off, you don't ever get really clear answers from your partner, things just feel vague and unsure and constant, like the goalpost is constantly moving, you're probably being gaslit a lot, and this person's really doing a lot of deceptiveness with you. Are you experiencing less joy than you used to? Are you finding that like Christmas and holidays is stressful? Are you finding that you just like everything's hard because you're like trying to work through all the myriad things that can go wrong because everything feels like so loaded and so like potentially going to break into a fight and you never know what you're facing? That's another sign that things are not good in your relationship. Are you feeling edgy, like you can't sleep, like you're watching over your shoulder and easily startled? Again, this is a level of hypervigilance that has to do with the fact that you are in a constant state of fight or flight. Do you feel less than? Do you start to feel like maybe you're not as good then? I'll tell you, I am still trying to shake that off. It's really hard for me not to walk around. I'm like, what do you mean you're trying to shake that off? Here you have a PhD and you have this platform and you talk to people. I still struggle with how well he got into my head and really made me doubt myself and made me feel like somehow when it comes to every woman in the world, I'm not quite up to par. There's something a little wrong with me, especially as an aging woman in the United States. It's just really hard. It takes a big hit on your sense of self and your ego. So if you're feeling like that, like you just feel like you've been diminished in some way, that you're just not like everybody else, they don't bring as much to the plate as other people, that's a sign that you've been in a toxic relationship and that's damaging you. Do you find that you're not hanging around friends and families the way that you used to, that you're feeling isolated and cut off by yourself, that maybe you've lost touch with these individuals, that you're really struggling to stay in touch or even know what to say? That's another sign that you're being affected by this relationship in a very negative way. Are you struggling to fall asleep? Are you feeling like, this is one of the things I do. I would nod off. I would be watching TV and then literally wake up finding myself asleep. I would just like, I was so exhausted, I couldn't even stay awake to do the things that I normally did. And that's not me. I was never doing that before this relationship. That was completely surprised me that I just started to like fall asleep everywhere. And yet I would other times really struggle to stay asleep, or I'd wake up so many other times at night like this, like super alert, like I've had a lot of sleep and I didn't, only had a few hours of sleep. And yeah, exactly. Work starts to suffer because of that. Do you feel like just ashamed or guilty, or like something's not quite right with you, like something's off, that like you're always to blame, or everything seems to circle around you, or this person always says that you're causing the problems, and if you would just stop, all these problems would go away, that it was you, even though all these other relationships you've had in your life, that's not been true. You've never been the source of those problems. This is new to this relationship. That's another sign that this relationship is causing damage to you. And finally, do you find that you're procrastinating, you're avoiding things, you're dragging your feet on things, you're not moving on activities because you just feel like you're trying to avoid the tension or the conflict or the criticism of your partner? And maybe inside yourself, you're feeling so much ambivalence. Like, here's the way I showed up for me. I didn't even know if I could schedule a vacation or make another major decision, because my thought was, are we going to be together or not be together? Is this person still up to no good and I can't trust them and I shouldn't bank my future on them and get in more embedded with this individual, because then it's going to be more tricky to get out, or not, because I just couldn't make a decision. So those are the ways in which these relationships are parasitic and really drain us of our resources and really negatively affect us. They cause anxiety and depression, an erosion of self-esteem. You start to develop trauma responses to difficulties. You start to show real cognitive impairments, real loss. It alters your brain chemistry. It changes your ability to trust. Wow, right. All of these things, it happens. So, okay, so how do we recover? And then I'll start to take your questions. Start to create some emotional boundaries. I know this is really hard to do. The first thing I had to do was I had to say to myself, this person's opinion no longer matters to me in the same way. I will view this with cautiousness, and I'm no longer going to base my life around what this person thinks and feels about me. I'm going to have to basically, in my mind, see myself as a separate individual that needs to be watching out for my best interest, because this relationship is not doing that for me. Healthy relationships, on the other hand, will, but unhealthy relationships are destructive and they will tear you down as they go down. So you have to create this emotional barrier. It's hard to do because I wasn't trained to think that way. I was trained of us. We're a team. We face the world together. This person has my back. But ask yourself, does your partner have your back? Mine didn't. I bet you they don't. I bet you they have their own back. So really, if no one has your back, you have to start to protect your emotional boundaries, your literal boundaries. And then I want you to start to reconnect with your self-reflection practices. I want you to really begin to critically ask yourself, if something feels off, it's off. And in the moment, you're not going to know probably what is off. It's going to take time, but I want you to really think about it's not adding up, and it's not adding up. I want you to listen to the gut. If the gut's bothering you, then there's something wrong. And take the time it takes to figure it out, or make no decision until you can figure it out. And if you can't figure it out, it's okay. You don't step out on unknown territory, finding out that you've just walked the plank and didn't know it. So really reconnect with your sense of your self-criticalness, your ability, critical thinking, that's the word I'm looking. Reconnect with your critical thinking, your self-reflection. Really tune into yourself and realize that you are your best resource. Your gut instinct is very sophisticated. If you don't believe that, read Gavin DeBecker's book, The Gift of Fear. It will very much encourage you to learn to trust yourself. You're scanning the environment all the time and picking up all sorts of information that is incredible. Second, I want you to start to build a supportive routine. What this means is I want you to start bringing people back into your life. I want you to start watching out for your own diet and taking control over that. Don't let this other person control your diet. You control your diet. That's what happened to me. I lost control of my diet. This person ran me all day until I only had dinner at night, and we only ate once a day. Why? I should not have allowed that. I should have forced breaks to force myself to have bathroom breaks, hydration breaks, meal breaks. So take control back of your schedule. Maybe it means you need to go to another room. Maybe, I don't know what it means, but it may mean you have to think out of your box in order for you to protect yourself around this. But bring people back into your life. Bring these routines back into your life that really are healthy. Get out and exercise, even if it's taking a walk, but really start to bring practices in that help you take control over the things that you can, where you can. It might have meant for me that I didn't ride with this guy, that when we did business throughout the day, that we didn't try to do it together, we did it separately. I had my own car. I didn't need him to go do those things. I know for me what it would have meant, and this is why I had a problem with it. He was a serial cheater, and I knew it meant that he would be up to more crappy stuff, and I was trying to manage that, trying to reduce my risk by reducing his opportunity. I would tell the new me, don't do that. First of all, get out. That's what I would tell me today. The second thing I would say, let him do what he's going to do because he's already doing it. You're not stopping him anyway. Even if you think you're stopping him, you're not stopping him. Trust me. And if it's a her, you're not stopping her either. So if this person's one of those people, they're finding a way around you. So just stop managing it. Start taking care of yourself. So and I also want you to start really channeling your energy and your time in a different way that's healthier for you. This person is just on purpose exhausting you. They're not doing any of the kind of emotional labor that they should. You really need to prioritize yourself and preserve your sanity. If they're asking you a complicated question that's findable on Google, don't answer it. You can say, oh, I think Google has a solution for that. Well, that's where I found, you don't need to always be this person's sort of directory or justification. You don't need to over-explain yourself, justify yourself. You don't need to do that. You can just say, I don't know, or yeah, that is a problem, or I'm sure you'll figure it out, or something. Of course, keep yourself safe, because I know some of those answers could really ignite more angry person, but be very careful. And then document things for your clarity. That's one of the best things that I did is I started creating a file of proof that really, I still have it, of things that happened, the letters I wrote, the responses that happened, the things that I found that really proved that I wasn't crazy. I started keeping it, and it really helped me root myself in the truth and really root myself so that I saved my sanity. All right, I threw a whole lot at you, so I'd love to know what you think, where you're struggling, what's causing issues, because this is the time where we take those questions. And like I said, if you're looking for support, please strongly consider reaching out for one of my groups. I really would love to meet you, would love to work with you and help you through this. And like I said, there is no low cost for Toxic Free Relationship Club. It's whatever you can afford. Yeah, it's $75 a month for the weekly meetings, but if you can't afford that, please reach out and let me know, and we'll make private arrangements. My goal is not to necessarily make money off of you. My goal is to, of course, financially keep myself solvent, but at the same time, give you the resources that you really need. So yeah, April said the nonstop talking, the complaining, it's all exhausted. Yeah, exactly. And Mobius said we get in the arguments over the dumbest things. Other people are saying, yeah, they really love to sabotage my diets, ruining my vacations. Now I'm having all sorts of migraines and teeth grinding. Yeah, it's exactly what happens. Tammy, that's a great question. The weekly meetings now are opening up for December. So we have them on now Monday at 3 p.m., Tuesdays at 5:30 p.m., and this is Central Standard Time. So please, adjust to your time zone. It'll be Thursdays, 8:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, and Saturdays, 10:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. Lisa, Sunny, and I are both now going to be this collaborative effort for Toxic Free Relationship Club, which is really opening and expanding the weekly group meetings that are now available. So that means whether you're on the other side of the world or not, there should be a time that works out for you. And they last for an hour. So they're 15 minutes, they come in, it's a small group, and it's facilitated by whatever is your primary topic, whatever's been going on. And each other supports each other. So it's not limited to you just getting support from me. We help each other. We learn from each other. And so it's really kind of this nice way for you to get to know other people and their stories while you support each other. But also what you additionally get is her webinars, my webinars, free trainings. You also get the chat component. We also do a monthly book club. Right now we're reading George Simon's book, Character Disturbances. Next month, we're going to start the book called Feeling Unreal about dissociation. So it's a whole lot of support built into it. And I would really love if you'd like to think also about retreats. They're really coming for Rising Strong. It's in February 19th through the 23rd. It's in, like I said, Riviera Maya. We're staying at a private hacienda with amazing level service. We have three spots left, and I would love to have you. I'd love to have you come. Ellie wanted to know, is this going to be on replay? Yeah, this whole thing's being taped right now, Ellie. So when you get done, it's going to be available for you to watch and play back. I know that I went through a lot of stuff really fast, so maybe some of you might want to see this again. So those of you who want to see a replay, it can be found on YouTube or Facebook. It's also on Facebook too, which reminds me, I haven't been checking. Oh, so how do you handle, this is a great question, Tanya. How do you handle a family like this when you're heading into the holidays? I would plan some plans, like for example, bookend your event wherever you're seeing family. So if Tanya, you're going over at 2 o'clock and you're having dinner, plan to have something at 5, so you need to leave. Also, recognize that whenever a toxic conversation comes up, you makes you feel super uncomfortable, it's draining. Just stand up and walk out and go to another room and talk to somebody else. But literally think of ways of how you can manage difficult people over this holiday that's coming up. It's really possible for you to sort of like limit your exposure if you think about this ahead. I would also suggest you plan scripts. Like for example, like if you know you have somebody there who always says something that's hurtful, plan what you're going to say when that person says that thing, so that you're not surprised when it happens and you know how to handle it and you're ready. And I would practice it. Literally, I would practice it so that you're ready to say that. Yeah, Brenda, I hear you that they do really do bizarre things, like yours was talking about the medication that medicated you that way. I'm really sorry that you went through that. And Emily, yeah, I see that you said I was describing you, and I'm really sorry to hear that too. Yeah, Kate, I agree. If anybody wants to contact me, it's very easy. Just look at my handle, which is Kerry McAvoy PhD. Put a .com and put hello at Kerry McAvoy PhD. I respond to every letter that somebody sends me. So if you write to me, you do not get an auto reply. I actually will get to it immediately. I'm very fast, and I will respond to you and kind of explain whatever question you have about whatever it is that's whatever you're thinking. So I do appreciate that, Kate. Thanks for letting me saying that. Okay, other questions for me. Yvonne, so apparently you asked a question that I didn't see and that I missed it because I didn't. Oh yeah, I do have weekly emails. Yeah, so people may not realize this. It's also available as part of a subscription on YouTube as well as Instagram. I got to think about where it's at. So in YouTube and Instagram, you get, if you become a high level subscriber, there's only one level of subscribers on Instagram, but you get the access to the podcast extra. So if you ever listen to my podcast, Breaking Free from Narcissistic Abuse, at the end, I always ask some question, and then the person I'm interviewing or I'm talking to, that person and I go and then talk about that conversation in a separate exclusive interview that is never published. It's never published publicly anywhere. The only place it's published is in the newsletter, Substack newsletter, or on Coffee. So for $5 a month, you get access to all of these interviews, and we do for a month. So, but I also create a playlist. So if you become the high level, I think it's like this called the Super Thriver on YouTube, you get access to that playlist. Or if you become a subscriber on Instagram, you get access to that playlist because it just becomes a subscriber only content. So 3 ways to get to it. You become a Substack or Coffee subscriber for the newsletter, or you become a subscriber on Instagram or a subscriber on YouTube at the high level, and you get immediately access to all of them. And I think right now on YouTube, there's like 25 to 30 of them. And they include interviews with people like with Dr. Les Carter, Dr. Peter Salerno. Soon I'm going to be posting in a couple weeks, in 2 weeks, it will be Daniela Masinek about cults. There's also one with Lynn Strathy on echoism. I think there may be one with Dr. Stern, maybe, I don't know, maybe that's too early. But anyway, so if you're looking for all these like access to these like exclusive interviews, sometimes there are things that like are really things that we don't talk about on it that are real practical or some new angle that you've not heard. So if you really would like access to that, like I said, subscribe to the newsletter, Substack or Coffee, $5 a month, or become a subscriber on Instagram or YouTube, and YouTube on the higher level, and you get immediate access to that. So Divine is saying he wrecked my long-term friendships and have no babysitting at all. Yeah, it is amazing to me how they are so good at doing stuff like that. So good. And I agree. Kate just said, don't tell them whatever you're doing. I really want you to really urge you against disclosing too much. This is super hard for me. I really struggled because it felt unnatural, but because they're secret keepers and they're deceptive and lying, then you end up thinking because you're being self-protective that now you're a secret keeper and you're lying as well. I really struggled with that mindset, realizing that their reason is secret keeping and lying is order to deceive you and take advantage of you, but you're doing it for reasons for you to just to be able to get out safely. You're doing it for your safety. You're not doing it on purpose. It's not like you're trying to exploit this other person. You're not trying to take something that's unfairly theirs and you're making it yours. That's what they're doing. They're trying to like literally scam you out of stuff. So I know that's very hard to think about because when you're trying to like strategize and get out, you have to do things that they probably wouldn't be okay with, like opening a bank account and start putting money in it so you actually have money because they keep draining all the money. Even I know somebody who said that to me that their college fund had been drained for their kids. This person got into the college fund. I mean, you'd think that there's certain areas that are just like off limits that are no-goes that you wouldn't do. No, there's no like safety in these individuals. So you have to really start to say, you know what, this person's going to take everything that if I don't protect myself, I have to think strategically like this. So yeah, Paige said, yeah, my ex-husband threatened me with a weapon and said that if I wouldn't tell him what he wanted to hear. Jeez. I hear horror stories all the time. I really do. Anymore, I'm just not shocked. Yeah, somebody else said a friend's dad took all her college fund as well. I agree. There was a podcast on Betrayal Weekly of a young lady whose parents said, sure, you can go to college. We'll support you going to this really wonderful college far away. And then she got out of the college 4 years later and found out that they'd taken loans out under her name, saying that it was living expenses, and they'd been living off of her being able to take debts out. They've been living that off of her in her name so that she got out of the relationship, and basically they bankrupt their daughter before she could even graduate. And now she's stuck with this massive loan that nobody's going to forgive. So please, you have to realize these people are not going to be thinking about you. So somebody is saying, it's been a long time and I want to be able to date again and I need to find a sitter. It is challenging. One of the things that I used to do, this is back in the day when my kids were younger, I used to actually like put out an ad for everybody that was young between 13 and 15. So not old enough to date, not old enough to have a car, but maybe I could train them to be ready to be independent babysitters. And I would make sure that they had younger siblings so they kind of knew how to keep kids safe. And I would bring them on. And then first I would like stick around the house and do things maybe outside or something and have them watch the kids, see how it goes, and then slowly increase their opportunity for them to be alone. So that might be one alternative for you guys to think about, those of you who are really strapped and struggling to find good help at inexpensive cost, because I know babysitters are like, whoo, it's a really major source of income these days. So back in the day, I think I made like $1 or $2 an hour. I think it's way, way different today. So Mobius Maximus is saying I was accused of financial abuse for changing my bank account so I had some control over spending. Yeah, it's exactly right. That's a perfect example of how they will then weaponize you doing a simple thing to increase your autonomy. They see it as direct. See, you just proved it. They see that as a direct threat. Instead of seeing that as, wow, that's a way for me to support you, to show that I love you, that we're in this together. No, they see that as you're literally taking something away because they sense that loss of sense of control. They see as a direct attack to them, a direct attack. Yeah, so I want to leave you guys with this mindset. It's something that I've been talking a whole lot about because I think it's so critically important. There are 4 mindsets that people tend to have in the world. I win, you win. Most of us would like to have that. That's a collaborative mindset. Most people, hopefully, have an I win, you win philosophy. And a lot of us, those of us who are kind, compassionate, empathetic people, we're even willing at times to say, I'll lose if that benefits you. You know, when we're a parent, for example, a parent, we're willing to like step out and help our children. We're willing to say, you know, I'm going to forego maybe this month's extra cash in order for you to have this really nice thing. Or I'm willing to forego having better Christmas gifts because I really want you to have a Christmas gift. Or we're willing to do that. That's called I lose, you win. That's a sacrificial position. The problem is toxic people take only these other two positions. That is, they win. In other words, I win, you lose. They want to win at your expense, or they're willing to do what's called mass destruction, mutual mass destruction. I lose, you lose. So really be aware of that they do not play fair. They're not about you coming out ahead. This is not a win-win situation. This is going to either be you losing at the expense of them, so they're going to win at the expense of you, or everybody is going to lose because they're not having you come out ahead. That's the ultimate threat. Well, I need to hop off today and jump over to join my group in a few minutes. Let me tell you what next week is about as we get ready for vacation, for at least for a long holiday weekend. I want to talk about how to protect your big-heartedness against toxic people's manipulation. So if you're one of these really kind people who are just really sensitive about other things and you like to watch out for people, I want to talk about how your compassion gets weaponized against you. It's called Why the Narcissist Feels Contempt for Your Compassion. So that will be next week's YouTube Live, as well as TikTok Live and Facebook Live. It's always on Tuesdays at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. Thank you so much, guys, for joining me. This was it's always fun. I always have a lot of fun hanging out with you guys. So I'll see you next week as we head into Thanksgiving in the United States. But otherwise, take it easy this week. Be careful as you grocery shop and get ready for the holidays. Think about what you want to talk about when it comes to compassion and empathy with me next week, and how we can help you step into the holidays in a safer position. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.